Good morning. It's Monday, the 9th of August, and Celtic are off the back of a tremendous 6-0 win against Dundee at the weekend. Sean Martin and Alison Mcconnell with me, Andy Bargh, to look back at how Celtic did so well and who did so well for Celtic. And I suppose in that regard, there's only one place to start, and it's with Kyogo Furuhashi. Sean, he's made quite the impact since signing, scored a lovely dink against Jablonec on Thursday, and he just picked up from where he left off, and that hat-trick was what a way to endear yourself to the home support in your home debut.
It was great, to be honest. Yeah, I thought when I saw the Dundee lineup, I thought the height and the physicality, obviously that was a natural inclination. I thought seems like he might have a harder time of it, but I must admit that impressive movement that was on show to score his wee dink against Jablonec, and it was just there again the whole game, or the 70 minutes that he was on. To be honest, he could have had another 2 or 3 because he gets himself into some great positions. He obviously, one was a goal line clearance to prevent him getting a hat-trick before he got his hat-trick, but it was a real standout display. And I think the manager, Ange Postecoglou, commented on this afterwards. It wasn't just the goals, it wasn't even just the movement to get into the positions, it was the fact that he was clearly leading the line and pressing and setting the example and setting the tone from the front that was so impressive. And I think that endears him to the fans just as much as the goals did.
Yeah, Alison, what impresses you about Furuhashi and the way that he's quickly adapting?
I think there's so much to be impressed with. I think even when you take the goals out of it, I think his movement, it looks exceptional. I think his link-up play looks very good. I think in the first 15, 20 minutes, I think you could see him moving into positions, and Celtic weren't really picking out and identifying where he was and maximising those opportunities, but it came. You know, I think the longer the game went on, you could see it coming, you could see it piecing together. I think he looks like a very exciting signing on early impressions. I think when you consider everything that he's had to deal with, he's coming into a new culture, a new language, a new dressing room, a new country. He seems to have acclimatised immediately. I think that will speed up the process of settling. I think it can be a huge thing for players to go straight into a team and make such an impression. And I think it just facilitates coming in and really bedding in. But I think too, you've got to, if you're speaking about performances, I think you need to speak about Ryan Christie too. I think he was pretty exceptional. He had a hand, and I don't know how many goals he had a hand in, but I thought he was excellent. And I think it raises the question again of how he fits in so well to the system that Ange Postecoglou wishes to play, and whether or not there might be a longer term deal on the table for him.
Yeah, and Sean, we spoke about where Christie might be best suited. I proffered that he might be better in the middle. You stuck to your guns and said, no, I like him out wide. That's where he was played, and he really shone out there.
He did. I mean, it's not so much that I don't think he should play through the middle. It's just I don't really care where he plays as long as he's in the team more than anything else. I thought, again, yesterday just showed everything about why he's so suited to playing under Ange Postecoglou. Alison's already touched on the amount of goals he was involved in, but as usual, it was stuff off the ball, his pressing, his harrying, everything about the display was just top quality. Yeah, I think if they can get a deal done, not to go too Godfather on it, but if they can make him an offer he can't refuse, that would be great. So
yeah, it's an interesting one, Alison, because Christie is free to chat to other clubs now. He's got 6 months left, so it seems strange to me that a player of that quality, well, of course it would be great for Celtic if he does hang around, but it seems to me quite strange that a player of that quality hasn't made the jump yet when his contract is so close to finishing.
It's an interesting one. I think, I think there's been various considerations offered. I think, but I think that there seemed to be a bit of chat yesterday that the club haven't made a concrete offer either. I think the very least you have to do is give him something to think about. I think you have to consider. He will have to consider his options, whether or not there was conversations last year about whether or not he felt as though he wanted to go and try and challenge himself at a higher level, how he fits in and what his own vision is of what the new chapter is going to be at Celtic would be worth a conversation, I think, because if there is a future for him at Celtic, I think he would be pivotal to the team and how Postecoglou wishes to play. But I think what you have to do is make him an offer and give him a decision to make.
Yeah, I wonder if I think Christie does have his eye and his heart set on playing somewhere else at some point in his career, and he's now coming into his prime years, which seems a bit strange considering how good he's been for such a long time. I wonder if there might be a situation here similar to Stuart Armstrong, where you sign a short-term extension and then give it one last good go, and then afterwards you get your move when the club can get some money. I don't know what you think of that, Sean.
I mean, I kind of touched on that in my article on why Ryan Christie suits playing under Ange as well. Like, I mean, Stuart Armstrong, there's not that much between them in terms of the age that would be if Christie was to sign on even just for the rest of this season and then get a move. And obviously Armstrong went for decent money. Obviously it depends if Christie was to sign enough of an extension that Celtic get good money for him. But I think that it's maybe overstated how keen he is to leave, or he would be gone already. So as long as the chance is there, I think Alison's spot on. You've got to give him an offer that he really thinks about whether he wants to go or whether he wants to stay.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out and where he does go or if he does stay. He was excellent yesterday. It did seem that he was on exactly the same wavelength as the other attackers in the team. You saw the second goal that Furuhashi scored where he skinned his man down the left with the nutmeg and played the ball perfectly across into the danger area that Furuhashi just had the tap in. And then there was the through ball, and only the second game of the season. I'm not sure we'll see a better assist, to be honest, for Celtic this season than the no-look pass where he reversed it in behind for Furuhashi to get on the end of. He was magical, really, at times, Alison.
I think he's a very intelligent player. I think he's a clever player. I think he sees a pass that not too many players in the squad have got, that in terms of his vision and his life.
Oh. Let's see if Alison comes back to us. I think she was having Wi-Fi problems actually quite recently about this. We'll come to you, Sean, in the meantime. So we've not just got some silence here. Yeah,
no,
Christie's assists, they were excellent.
Yeah. You mentioned the second Furuhashi goal where he skinned the opponent up the left. I mean, that was an overhit pass that he chased down and then just pulled off that outrageous bit of skill and then literally just put it on a plate for Kyogo, who had obviously made that run again that he was making all day. It just showed everything about Christie's game, I think, that suits the current iteration of Celtic, the strength and the skill, but the persistence as well. It was superb, really.
I can see Alison's eyes blinking. That must mean she's unfrozen. So welcome back, Alison. Yeah, we were just talking about. Where's she gone again?
I'm sorry. Sorry, there's clear Wi-Fi issues at my end this morning. I apologise.
No, I remember you saying recently you had some Wi-Fi problem, but we'll crack on. Yeah, we were just talking about Christie's assist there. The second one, I think you were in full flow there, a bit like Christie, just waxing lyrical about it.
Yeah, I was just saying I think he's a very intelligent player, and I think among the majority there would be a consensus that it makes sense to keep these kind of players. I think if you to go out and try and replace them, it costs a lot of money. There's always a gamble in bringing in someone else. I think if you know you have someone that fits into the system you wish to play, that has so much to offer, I think it makes sense to try and keep him.
It seems now that Furuhashi is the centre forward pick over Eduard until his future sorted out one way or the other. I think it's probably agreed between most Celtic fans that it's probably time for him to go. The head has been turned, and I think there might be a fairly serious offer coming in from Brighton. It would appear that this might not be the disaster that some maybe feared it would be now, with Eduard leaving, given the way that Furuhashi has quickly adapted. They're very different types of strikers, but he's produced very quickly, and to be honest, Sean, it's hard to see that stopping. And I will caveat that yes, it was Dundee, the newly promoted Dundee that Celtic were playing, and at the start of last season, Celtic thumped Aki's 6-0, I think it was, and everyone kind of had visions of Celtic going on to win the league, and everything's going to be fine, but things very quickly turned sour. Different situation this season, but this doesn't mean that Celtic are back or are they as strong as they could be because they've beaten Dundee 6-0. You would agree?
Aye, I mean you've got to temper the the hysteria a wee bit, I suppose, but it was really, really impressive, and that shouldn't really be dismissed either. Obviously, Ange will want to be drilling in this philosophy to the extent that it's the rule rather than the exception of a performance. Dundee didn't really threaten going forward. That was partly to do with the way that Celtic were playing, but in reality they were quite toothless. They were physical, and that was about it. So putting in that kind of performance and I think Alison touched on it last week, putting in the kind of performance when maybe something happens that could shake the defence's confidence would be the next step. The defence weren't really tested. But overall, I mean, there's only positive things to take from that game, I would think, and Furuhashi is clearly the main one.
It's kind of I suppose for Celtic fans, the perfect mix, because with United beating Rangers, that opened a few eyes and a wee door of possibility. Celtic really just kind of strolled through it, just battered it down actually with the 6-0 win, Alison. So there was the confidence boost of seeing Rangers' unbeaten run ended, and then that just completely followed up by an overwhelming performance against Dundee. So it worked out really well on both ends.
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is make sure you capitalise on that. If there's a slip up anywhere, you have to make sure that you go out and you get the 3 points. I think it'll be an interesting season. I think we've spoken about this before, but I think the difference with having a full support in and having fans back in can be monumental. I think I would have to say I think Rangers benefited in some ways from having empty stadiums almost. I think there are certain players I think can be inhibited by growls of frustration when things don't go well, if passes go astray, and I think others can feed off the energy. I think there's a difference. I think it'll be interesting to see sometimes when there are moments of adversity in games and fans are turning, I think it can really put pressure on players at times, and I think it makes a massive difference. I think it can be, the psychology of it can be huge. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this season. And I do think it had a part to play at Tannadice on Saturday as Rangers dropped points, and the home support were geared up for that, and the noise and the energy of the crowd that it generates. I think it can be huge. But to go back to your point, I think in the space of a week, if you look at the difference of the picture, it's quite substantial. You've gone away, you've got 2 wins. There's been a clean sheet. There's been 10 goals. There's been 2 experienced players come into the squad. In terms of the league places, you've quickly picked up the slack from dropping points at Tynecastle. And all of a sudden, the picture looks considerably different. The challenge now is to sustain that positivity. And the only way you do that is by building on the performances.
Do you think it's quite frustrating, Alison, that Celtic don't have the chance immediately to build on that, considering it's the League Cup next rather than just following on with another league game?
Maybe there's a potential for that, but on the other hand, you've got Hearts again, where you slipped up. It's almost a possibility of going and saying, well, where do we come in a fortnight? You just drop points to Hearts in the opening league game. To be honest, I think the performance at Tynecastle wasn't all bad. I think on another day, you would maybe have created enough chances to win that game. I think we've spoken before about the goals that were given away cheaply too. So I think any game is a possibility of building momentum. You have the Europa League tie again on Thursday night, and then you have the League Cup tie at the weekend. I think every game just now is an opportunity to build towards a vision that Postecoglou wishes to play, and to implement this system and to really put in the foundations of it. I think you mentioned yourself, I think it's one thing to do it against Dundee, against a team that have just been newly promoted. There will be sterner challenges ahead for Celtic.
Sean, let's have a quick word on Anthony Ralston, because that has long been, well, since the Ange Postecoglou came in, one of the areas that I think is needing strengthened. No slight against Ralston, just that he's the only right back really. So, of course, depth is needed as well. It's probably a bit more in quality. But that's 2 league games, 2 goals. What's happening there?
Fair play to him. He's put in a couple of really good performances. Again, there wasn't much to test him defensively yesterday, so I don't know how much you can read into that aspect of the performance. But otherwise, I think everybody always did appreciate his work rate. His effort was always there. The quality hasn't always been there, and I don't know if it will be consistently, but the last couple of performances, is it out with the realms of possibility that Ange likes him enough that he's at least the backup rather than just dismissed entirely? I don't know.
It's interesting, Alison, because sometimes there's just a fit between a manager and a player, and you see them come in from the cold, and suddenly they turn in performances that make you think, where have these been for such a long time? And the two very different types of goals that he scored against Hearts and then Dundee, but the one yesterday especially was tremendously taken. The second touch to take it away from the defenders and finish on the spin was the sort of goal you'd probably associate with an attacker, really, rather than a fullback.
Well, the first thing I would say is I think it speaks a lot of his mental strength, which you're going to need if you're going to play for Celtic or Rangers. I think you need to have a fairly thick skin. He wouldn't have been ignorant or deaf to everything that's been going on. I think Celtic have very publicly been looking for a right back. I don't think there's been any secrets about it. So I think it speaks a lot of him as a person to be able to go in and turn a blind eye to all of that and simply focus on his own performances. I think there's always a danger sometimes that you become a whipping boy when things aren't going well and you stand out a bit. I think there's a danger that certain players can buckle under that kind of pressure. So I think it says a lot about him that he's been able to go and focus on his game and put in a few performances, I think, that have raised eyebrows amongst elements of the support that would have been sceptical about his ability. Whether or not it puts him in as first choice right back, I would still ask a question of that. I think the club will still look to bring in a more experienced full back in that position. But what I would say is that I think now he's proven that he would be, at the very least, a capable deputy.
I think that's a decent level for Ralston to be content with. Back up right back at Celtic, Sean. I know it's loan spells that he's been subjected to for a while, but do you think that he'll be happy with that being second fiddle?
Right this very minute after yesterday, probably not. But I think if you'd have said to him at any point over the last couple of seasons when he was being loaned out, when he really didn't look as if he was going to make the grade, that he would have the chance to be heavily involved in the squad, I think he would have taken it. I think he would. So,
okay. Well, that'll do us for today then. We'll see if by this time tomorrow or the next day or the day after that we'll have any more concrete information to discuss on Ryan Christie's contract. I think that is a pressing matter for Celtic to sort out, especially the way that he's started the season. And as you can see along the bottom of your screen there, just subscribe to the Celtic Way if you're enjoying the morning briefings and the articles that we're publishing. It's only £1 a month for the rest of the year, and then you get up to £3 a month after that. So very fairly priced, and we hope that you enjoy what we're doing here at the website. So see you again tomorrow. Sean, Alison, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.